reply, sir.
How can I thank you?
You know my weakness.
You will be paid in silver and gold.
You understand for without being told. You know my weakness for silver and gold.
Rama will it bring you joy in fighting?
Oh, the kiss me is
As all is right. It is my destiny, who can deny it?
He has the money and he will pay. Out of this business, I make a profit.
Unfortunately, the first time a person hears puppets, they think little tiny proscenium and someone holding their hands over their head and you know, creatures bonking each other. Amy does an amazing Punch and Judy show, though, so I don't want to knock. I don't want to knock that one that's just set apart from everything else. Whenever I talk about it, I always embellish what I was saying by saying, "Oh, some of them take 3 people to operate," and that was, if I say that early on, it would let whoever I was talking to know that it was something bigger than a sock on your hand. I'd say, "Oh, some of them are 12 feet tall."
Grass, or trees, or other creatures. They couldn't tell themselves from their surrounding world.
My name is Amy Trumpeter. I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. I also was raised Catholic and wanted to be a canonized saint. So I used to make May altars for the Blessed Virgin. That was really important. And that seems like a precursor to puppetry. Then I went to Berkeley in the 60s when the free speech movement was happening. And I worked in Oakland, California with Catholic Worker Movement. And there it became clear to me that street theater was a way to just cross all the boundaries.
No escape from the law unless you're part of the present administration. And he's got a big stick, and I've got a little stick here. Ow! All right, punch. Take that. Oh, ow, ooh, ow, 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 ow.
The puppets made sense for me in 1966, let's say, on Fifth Avenue with anti-Vietnamese war demonstrations. And I saw Bread and Puppet with these giant Vietnamese women puppets with blindfolds on, and their hands were tied. They were tied together in a line, and over the top of them came an airplane. It was like a shark, a beast, and drum beats, which were the bombs that were being dropped on these little villages, and the women puppets went down, down, down to the street. And the power of that to energize a movement was a revelation to me. It was a convergence of that heavy wanting to be a canonized saint spiritualism. It was a convergence of the political activism that I had run into in Berkeley and art making, right? The sort of mystical ecstasy that is in art making when you're in it. And not doing say a commercial where someone's paying you and you have to make it right, but where all that is gone and you're freely in your art making. Bread and Puppet offered all of this. So I absolutely became part of it, worked with them, got married to Andy Trumpeter, so I got my last name, Amy Trumpeter. We did theater together as Blackbird Theater. Andy died when I was in my mid-30s. And Blackbird Theater became Red Wing Blackbird Theater. I came to Rosendale looking to rent a space because I had a sabbatical from Barnard teaching. And this building just looked so right for the things I want to do with my life. To have a river in the back and room for a garden and storage space, and then a garage door that opens on Main Street where I could do shows unproduced, unadvertised, just open the garage door and do shows was perfect. And puppetry seems like nothing. It's the theater form that's not legitimate. Historically, puppets have been allowed to say what people aren't allowed to say.
You can deliver a message with a puppet, and people will take it in much more easily than if you're being told.
This happened in England, and then they outlawed speech in theater. So the puppeteer got the schwazzle, but people knew exactly what that puppet was saying. And it can be pretty goofy. We go.
Wait a minute, don't show that.
And just jump in front and
Media blackout. Woo! Woo!
so like that.
That's one thing, ventriloquists can get away with. They can insult members of the audience and do all kinds of stuff, and everybody's looking at the dummy and not the guy who's actually talking.
And the puppet gets blamed, but the puppeteer walks home. It's kind of a miracle.
I went to an art exhibition of masks, and I took issue with a lot of the exhibitors because there were faces hung on walls that were painted nice, but I said, they can't be worn. You can't see through them. They're not masks. They're not tools for doing something. You're just hanging a face-shaped thing on the wall. It's just a piece of cardboard until it's in the hands of the puppeteer, and then it comes to life.
If you suspend disbelief in front of a puppet and you start believing in that puppet, something cracks open in you, and we get to the real you that's inside there. It cuts through the expectations that are preventing us. Like we're walking down the street just blocking out things, and puppetry is just saying, open the door, whatever little creature it is. Puppets are made out of garbage. Puppets are a recycled mess of this society. We can soak those cardboard boxes and get the brown paper. We can, use our energy to fold it into something. We can go in the street and speak what we feel is truthful in a way that's attractive and funny and engaging. I like the word amateur because it comes from amoa masamat, to love. And the work is done not for business reasons, not for bureaucratization. We're working out of the love of the art. There's always that curiosity of how do you do it? How do you take the hay and the clay and wrap it around the stick and make this giant figure? And what's the technique? And also, how do you do it on no budget? Like it's without grant money because the materials budget is so small. It's easier to get kids, partly in our culture. Puppetry is thought of as a kid's art form, and breaking down that prejudice that puppetry actually speaks to all ages. Puppetry is a great reconnector, and it's a reconnector that's not private and solo, just me. It's a reconnector where we're with a group of people doing it, and we're with an audience gathered together for some kind of redemption. And in these workshops, what we're trying to do is work with all ages, little kids, grown-ups, in the same way that the process is true and risky, and you don't know where you're going, and the materials tell you what to do. And to do that with a whole group of people is pretty exciting. I would say our first and second workshop went better than our third workshop, where we had a very small cast and not grown-ups mixed in with the kids. So it didn't say this art form is for everybody equally. It started to say this is a kids workshop, which gets into the kids' feeling about it too. And that's not the feeling that we want. We want it to be important to all of us to do it, to be there with it. And our other first two workshops for me had that. And young people are helping old people, I think, in the workshop because they haven't had as much conditioning.
I just like the way she gathered up kids different ages and brought them into a group just to do like projects. I think it's really I think it's cool.
She does stuff like for the community, by the community.
It's really creative and really fun.
She liked to let me know she enjoyed the time she was spending with them, and that they were teaching her things too. She doesn't just say, do this. She's open to the experience. And, they all grow together.
I haven't done workshops in ages because I didn't want to do workshops. I wanted to do show making. And then I did a bread and puppet workshop that ended in performance and felt, oh, we can do workshops that end in performance.
Puppet theater was this one place where all the artistic disciplines could find a home. Whether you were a visual artist or a musician, or you were writing it, or you were, like to sculpt and build. So it didn't matter what creative angle you hit it at, there was a place for it.
And our little puppet show is trying to say, what's the language that's not church, that's not politics, that's not TV, that's not the news, that's the truth of a human being. In a way, puppetry is on that edge of being crazy. I mean, we don't know when we go into the workshop what the show's going to be. And some weeks it goes better than other weeks.
Once the curtain's up and the show starts, it's not work, it's play. The work is setting up and loading in and loading out. A play is play. And it's presented in a way that lets you, as an audience member, saying, I could do this. I can recognize the materials they're making this out of. I could rummage through my recycling and move a few bags around and it tells a story.
There's a moment where you're on the edge of the cliff and you have to jump. And unless you do that, you don't get the result. It's a real leap of faith. And when you're in a group and other people are leaping with you, it's so much more fun. If you're not feeling scared or foolish being in a puppet, you've crossed a line. You're not scared to be foolish in public in a certain way.
You can be a human cartoon. Goofy, silly, big, move around funny, crazy voices and whatever. And it's all fair game. When you look at some big overproduced show, it's out of reach. It's like, oh, I could never do that, And that kind of like cuts people off. Amy kind of welcomes you in. Maybe one might look at it as like sort of ragtag, slapped together style, but she'll take anybody who's willing, and they come out the better for it. What kind of tears do puppets cry? Puppeteers.